What is up, guys? It's time for another Rational Mail / Rule Zero. Thanks for seeing us. All right, guys, thanks. Today we're going to talk about hoes are mad.
Oh my God.
That's my new YouTube intro, because that's what everybody does when they start a show.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, guys? Before you go and we get into today's topic, I just want to tell you to go and hit that subscription button.
There you go. You can't just say hit it. You got to smash it. No, destroy it. No, you got to drop it.
Yeah. That's funny to me how there is this. I think YouTube is kind of like the Wild West right now, but as we get deeper and deeper into like these shows where there becomes like sort of this standard format that people realize that, well, if I open my show like this, or I do these certain things, then I'm going to have like more people are going to respond to me. And if I only do it for 10 minutes, it's going to be great. And if I make my thumbnails look like hell, then people will think that I'm like for real instead of overly polished. And it's just amazing to me how like this formula is like taking shape right before our eyes.
Yeah. Dude, I'm impressed that you can tell somebody to smash the like button and then you can watch them smash the like button.
Yeah, and they'll do it.
So, by the way, guys, smash the like button. Don't do it because I told you to. Do it because you want to do it. But do it.
Yes, and subscribe because you want to, and you want to get these great shows. Today we are Rule Zero. We have myself, I've got Carl, I've got Hose Mad, and then I've got Ryan Stone. Hose Mad would be John from Modern Life Dating. And welcome to the Red Pill Dork Show. Just thought I'd let everybody know. So before we get started here, we're going to talk about the Hoe Phase today. This is something that I have written about in the past. It's in my second book, Preventive Medicine, I laid forth a timeline where I guess as far as like Western women are concerned, because a lot of people will criticize that book and say that, oh, that only applies to, Western women or women in America or women in the UK or whatever. And yeah, I understand that. But today we're going to talk about what I call the party years. And then how that affects other phases of life for women right now. I was kind of struggling as to what I wanted to talk about on this show, because this is actually supposed to be Rich's show, and I was supposed to do next week, but Rich is indisposed right now. So I was thinking, what can we talk about? What's hot? I mean, we've been talking about like the state of the manosphere and the state of like what guys are, what other people are doing right now and where we're going, I guess, in, the coming decade. And I really wanted to sort of get back to the meat and potatoes. So I wanted to talk about something that's actually, actionable information, things that guys can actually put to use in their lives. So, so what inspired me to do this and to, brought this up is I've talked about stuff like this on my show and on Red Pill 101 in the past as well. As you probably guess, I've gotten pretty deep into like the phases of maturity that women typically go through in their lives, to adjusted for context, adjusted for culture, adjusted for like socioeconomic status, I guess. But the reason I wanted to get into this was because I saw this Twitter thread, which I don't have ready to go just yet. Where did it go? There we are. Okay. So I showed you guys this, I think. And this was really interesting to me. Now, I've talked about open hypergamy in the past. I think I came up with the term back in 2014, maybe even 2013. And it was because I was seeing this trend in like television commercials and in sitcoms and in stories. And I think 50 Shades of Grey actually kind of solidified this for, I think, the social aspect of this. But it's no longer something that women hide. It's something that women are very open with, to the point where they make jokes about it, where they're openly, talking about things like this. Whereas before they would keep hypergamy concealed. It was in their best interests to be secretive about it. And I think since maybe 2012, women have been just sort of gradually, progressively embracing hypergamy and not like saying basically this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm about. And this thread right here, and I don't know who this person is, but she says, I had a wonderful hoe phase. 10-10, recommend all women have one. It really builds character, also makes you realize that you will and won't ever tolerate from a romantic partner or even a sex partner.
You ever notice how it's always ugly girls that put this out? Because this girl is ugly as sin.
Yeah. And so the gold really is in the comments of this, and I'll put the link to this thread in the description later on, so you guys can sort of peruse it a little bit more. But I just wanted to, I guess we could start out here by saying, is this something that, like, do you think that this party phase is something that women would do anyways, or is it something like sort of the great get even? Like, I think there's this idea that women believe, and if you look at some of these comments here, women believe that if men are going to do it, then we can do it too. And so it's the big get even, or else this is what they would be doing anyways. And I've said this before, that I think that certainly in Western cultures right now, we have eliminated the buffers and the stigmas that go along with something like this, to the point where now here we are in 2020, and I had a wonderful hoe phase. So I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this. And
honestly, I like how Whisper from the Red Pill subreddit put it. It's a technological issue.
You think so?
Yeah. Well, think of marriage 1.0, agrarian or like agricultural society. Mm-hmm. Sexual maturity for people, let's be generous here. Let's say 16 years old is when people get sexually mature. Mm-hmm. And if you're working on a farm, you need to be maybe 17 years old to be able to work. You have all the skills you need. You have a back, you're big enough. So you're telling, and then by 18, maybe you're able to put your own plot of land up. By 19, you get married. By 20, you can have kids. Telling somebody from the age of 16 to keep it in your pants until like a couple years, until you get your girlfriend that you're going to marry at 18. Mm-hmm. People can do that. You can be celibate for 2 years. Just ask half the neats in the chat here. Hey guys, what's going on? Then you make it factory work. It's spread out a little bit more. If you're working in a factory, you got to be a little bit older. You got to be 18 till you can start working. Age of marriage becomes 23 when you become financially independent enough to buy a house, which would take 2 years' salary. Mm-hmm. Now, though, that sexual maturity is still 16 years old, but you need to get finish your high school, so you're at 18, 4-year degree to be 22. Maybe you want a master's, legal law degree, PhD. You're asking somebody to keep it in their pants for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, it's a seller's market for girls. Everybody wants to sleep with young girls. So, and they have no consequences whatsoever, because you can't pigeonhole nature. Like, as much as you can say it's immoral, you can't tell somebody to keep it in their pants for 10 years. They just won't. And so you're giving these people this unreasonable expectation that to be moral, you can't have sex until you're 30 with your first husband. Mm-hmm. So of course this thottery is going to happen. And because women have such an easier access to the sexual marketplace, yeah, they're going to have a hoe phase now. That's just something that's manifested out of this. And you can't wish it back. You can't give them enough Bible passages to change it. It's literally got to be a technological change in where people younger are able to be productive enough in society to afford a place of their own and have economic surplus, and you've seen the housing market Western wide. Nobody can afford a house now even. So that economic independence is just gone. So of course you're going to end up with this situation. And I don't think it's a moral failing.
Are you guys seeing this more? I mean, because I know that you guys work with other, particularly John, I know you see this as well. Do you think that a lot of these, like, just sort of, I guess to tag this on to Ryan's point there, is, do you see that a lot of this frustration that we see from like guys in like either the MGTOW community or incels, or guys who are like looking for answers, guys are looking at like, how do I get girls kind of thing? Do you think that that's been exacerbated because of this, because of basically open hypergamy is what this is, but the party years and this expectation to like I think before all this, we used to say that guys would sow their wild oats, right? Like guys need to go out and get it out of their system kind of thing. They need to go see the world, seek their fortune, right? They need to go out and get it out of their system and find the one girl who can sort of tame them and that makes them like, we value that. Like we put some sort of value in, I guess we lost Ryan, in a guy who can go out and get laid fairly easily. But now we've sort of flipped the script for women right now. Do you think that a lot of the frustration is due to this?
No, all the guys that I coach that have troubles with dating, they are just exactly what you would think they are. And no offense to those guys, but they're obese. They are in poor shape financially. They live with mom and dad. They don't approach women, or they'll approach one woman in 3 months and bring me like a 10-page breakdown of every micro expression that happened on the date. You know, I don't think that these dudes are the women sleeping around is not the issue. It's the men not being men anymore, not having masculinity in the household, not having a normal traditional household where the father is respected and he runs the show. You know, what you grow up in is what you model your life by. And if you're raised in a house where dad's a complete pushover and mom is, you know, running the show the entire time, you're going to go thinking into the real world. That's how everything is, because your house is your framework for like what you think the real world is going to be like. Now, with the hoe phase, definitely in the United States, like being a hoe is just like, it's socially acceptable. And it's like not even socially acceptable. It's like it's reached to a certain level that it's like dogma. Like you have to hoe, and if you don't support her, you're a misogynist or you're a bad guy. But every man in his stomach, in his gut, he knows he doesn't want a girl that's been ran through. Okay? Yeah. I don't want a fucking Subway sandwich that's been passed around by 10 employees. You know, if like 1 or 2 touches it, that's fine. But you have 10 dudes coming from the back handling my sandwich. I don't want that nasty ass thing. I want something fresh and good, right? Because I don't know. I want quality. And if you want to go to like the biological side of it, it's ensuring paternity as well. So you don't want a girl that's been ran through. Like it's a gut feeling that all men have. Like they can say, oh, you know, like there's some like simp ass rapper who's like with what's that dirty bitch's name? Fucking, I think it's with Nicki Minaj, and like she's been ran through, and he's like, no, like it's Amber Heard. Some dudes with Amber Heard, the founder of the Slut Walk, right? Disgusting human. And, you know, he's like saying, like, you got to be a strong man to be with a woman like this. Like, no, you probably have to have a strong stomach to put up with the disgust. But any man who's being honest with himself, he doesn't want a girl that's been the village bicycle. Men love hoes. Men love sluts, but they don't keep them. That's the big difference there. I love a slut. I love a quick bang. But as soon as I bust that nut, it's like, all right, babe, like, so, you know, what are you doing after this? Why are you still here? Like, you know, daddy's YouTube celebrity. I got to go do my show. You got to get out of the house. You know what I mean? So that's the big thing there. The hoe phase is a little bit more prevalent in Western civilization as well, too. I've noticed that, you know, girls over here in Asia in general, they're just a little bit more naive and a little bit more coy. And there's still like Asia is very big on the family unit, as in America, the family unit is falling apart. And so, you know, with America thinking there's 76,000 different genders and all this fucking weird shit that we're diverting from what has gotten humans to this place, just as like a nuclear family, it's no wonder everything's so fucked up in the States. But I mean, over here in Asia, Carl was mentioning it before the show started. It was too like Asian girls, like a hoe phase is like, you know, she went and studied abroad in like America, and you know, she like maybe banged 1 or 2 dudes. But like an American girl is like, she's a freshman and she gets ran through by fucking 15 dudes in like, you know, 1 semester, and then next semester she keeps doing it, and then next thing you know, she's 50 dudes deep.
Yeah, this was one of the responses I pulled out of that thread. My hoe phase lasted several years, spanning multiple states. I wish I would have used it more to explore more. While fun, it was mostly a lot of quick hookups and bad sex. No regrets. I shudder to think of being stuck, not knowing better with one of these clueless Minutemen of my youth. So there's, I think what's funny is there's this, there's this, I guess.
Let's be fair though, like, sorry to cut you off there, Rolo, but like I just saw that girl's picture and I'm kind of disconnected from this whole thing. But Jesus Christ, that's coyote ugly. That's like a 3 a.m. hookup, man.
Right,
That's
right.
what you hook up with when it's like the bar is closing in 15 minutes. You're on last call and you order your 3 gin and panics.
I agree with you there, but here's the thing: is I think that when we see something like that, like we expect that from a girl who looks like Sinead O'Connor, right? We expect that from a girl who looks like Rose McGowan. But the problem is that it's not just the skanks, right? It's not just the stereotypical girl with the weird hair and the tattoos and everything. It's the good girl that's sitting next to you in church now.
Yeah, but like my major argument was that the Hoe Phase is not like a constant. It's not like all girls get ran through by 20 dudes in their Hoe Phase. Like for quote unquote the good girls, their Hoe Phase could be like 1 or 2 dudes. It's like the movie Grease. Rolo, you're familiar with it. John, you're probably not. Sandy is kind of like your stereotypical good girl. Like her, her kind of her bad girl face or her Hoe Phase is in that movie. She's basically hooking up with the bad boy, and she has this intent that it's going to become a relationship. It's never going to be. But at the same time, it's 1 or 2 guys versus, you know, the like real hoe who's like her Hoe Phase makes Sasha Grey blush. It's that bad. So you have to be kind of conditional with it too. It's I don't know. The Hoe Phase, like I said, with much else in this space, it's dependent on a lot of variables. So you just have to be careful with what you go for. Like a Hoe Phase that was 3 dudes is not a big deal. A Hoe Phase that involved her going to LA and shooting 4 videos with Rocco Siffredi is a big deal.
Yeah. Thanks for that $30 hookup there, Chris. Much appreciated. So and see, here's the thing is, and Chris brings this up too, is like, how do you prevent that? We just had a quick, sorry, I lost the, where'd it go? This one, like here it is. Like, I don't want that. I don't want to be, I don't want a girl who's ran through. What do I do? I get this a lot from guys, particularly guys who are, young guys who basically decided that they want to check out of the sexual marketplace. You can term them and however you choose, but it's guys who I think look for a reason not to go out, not to put themselves out there, not to put themselves, like they want to believe that they're out of the sexual marketplace. Or there's 2 ways to look at this. There's the guys who will say, well, I don't want a girl who's run through. I don't want a girl who's like, you know, I'm looking for my perfect little virgin bride. And you'll find the guys who are young enough to, like, you'll ask, why is this even a consideration for you? And then you get the guys who are like in their 30s and they're like going, well, I don't want a girl who's in her epiphany phase right now. And the epiphany phase, you know, from my book, from preventive medicine, comes directly after the Hoe phase. It comes directly after what I call the party years. I'm a little bit more tactful, I think, with it, but it's basically the same thing. Right, 18 to about 28 years old is when women are out there and they're doing what women do because that is their peak years for their sexual marketability, and then also their peak years for their sexual agency, which is the most power they're going to have. Pretty well, the average woman is going to have over her life at that time. So, you know, the joke is this: you know, they call the store Forever 21, not Forever 41. Because at 21, 22, 23 is what women want to get back to, because they understand on some level of consciousness that is their peak years, that's when they had the most control over their lives, because they were, you know, they didn't care about guys being infantile or looking for long-term relationships, or men need to man up and support me, and men need to become, you know, what happened to chivalry, that kind of shit. You don't hear that from women who are 23 years old. You hear it from women who are 33 years old because they're in a different phase. So when you look at this, like, where did it go? This chick here is like skincare girl, whatever. You know, she's saying, I wish her second tweet right after this was, I wish more women were encouraged to have Hoe phases, to be honest.
That's because she just wants to be like somebody to join her in her misery.
Oh yeah.
It's like the worst advice you can give a girl is to like hoe around. Cause I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Guys don't want a girl that's been ran through. He's not like, oh man, you know what, Bob? I just want a girl that sucked 50 dicks, man. I really want to lock down a girl that's been ran through by the fucking 49ers. You know what I mean?
I don't know about you guys, but I don't want a girl that doesn't know what she's doing either.
That's another thing.
You can teach them. You can teach them, and you can make your own little slut.
Well, did you hear Carl's opinion on coaching guys in this space and why he doesn't do it? I'm kind of that sexually.
Well,
I don't want a broken girl that's going to ruin my life, but.
Well, it's kind of like that middle thing. Like, if your girl knows how to deep throat, you should ask the name of the guy who trained her and send him a bottle of whiskey. Because that takes a lot of work. Because first you have to start off with that weird position when they're on their back on the bed, and then you have to slowly work away your gag reflex that way. It could be like at least a 3 to 6 week program if you can go at it intensely. So it's kind of a lot of work. It's worth it, but it's a lot of work. But at the same time, though, you have to be careful about who you invest in. Like, you don't want to teach a one-night stand too much. She's there to be a masturbatory tool. So investing energy in that is like, it's like trying to, like, that whole new McDonald's thing where they're trying to, like, fancy up their food. It's still fucking McDonald's, man. It's like, it doesn't matter if you add jalapeno mayo to it or, sriracha mayo or whatever. It's still McDonald's. So just keep in mind which girls you're actually dealing with, and always make sure you have them categorized in your head. Is this a hoe? Is this a girl that you want to be a plate? Is this a girl you want something more with? And it's your mental categorization that decides the level of investment you're going to actually make in her. Like, Rolo's been married like 20 years. Ryan's been with his girl for like 40, 50 years or something. I mean, he looks young, but I mean, the way he talks about it, they're like an old married couple, and he's not even 40 yet. So at that point, you actually want to invest a bit in it. Like, John, I'm not sure about his situation because, like, I don't know, is your girlfriend still your little Asian devil or what?
Is she what? My what?
Didn't you call her a Japanese devil at one point or something?
Yeah, but that's me being like racist in a funny way. Not, I call her I call her a godless devil who is uncivilized and doesn't eat with a fork. And I said I'm going to give her a Christian name, and she has to accept Jesus as her savior. It's completely different.
Well, if you're at that point with her, you can probably spend some time investing in her. But you have to be careful because, like, the biggest mistake I see guys make is they meet a girl on the hoe phase and she touches her penis, his penis, and at that point, they start investing in her as if she was wife potential or girlfriend potential. Because, like, let's be honest, like, most guys are just happy someone's touching their penis. And they will try and lock that down as fast as they can. But that's not the guy's job. It's like, it's the girl's job to lock you down, not vice versa. So
exactly.
At that point, if you're trying to lock her down, then you're taking a girl who's basically on her Sasha Grey phase, and you're trying to get her to lock down, and then you're surprised if she cheats on you or you find a tape where she's being gangbanged. Like, where's the surprise there, man? You set yourself up for it. It's like,
I think that's what's throwing a lot of guys off right now. And somebody threw this at me not too long ago, and I'm glad to see Roosh is finally coming around to what I've been saying since 2014, 2015, is that women will not be able to escape their hoe phase. Right. It's one thing if you can keep your hoe phase under wraps, like, but see, it gets back to the open hypergamy thing right now. Like, women don't care. Like this girl right here. I don't even know who she is. Just some rant. Like, and I know she's not all that attractive. Got it. But even the non-attractive ones,
she's ugly.
She still gets a hoe phase. What odds do you think a hot girl's got?
And that's another thing. Listen, the hoe phase is. Let me tell you guys something. The hoe phase is something girls that are not that attractive do to get validation. So they're like, I'm sexy. Like, look at all these men. They want me. And like, that's what they do. They go, they get passed around. But guys are dogs. We will fuck pretty much anything. I know I will. And so, like, but it's the value. The thing women don't understand is they think, okay, this guy wants to have sex with me, therefore I have value. No, guys will pretty much fuck anything. Yeah. You have value if a high value man decides to keep you in his life.
Yeah,
That's
the
big
same as the
thing.
guy talking about how his job is why his wife's going to be loyal. It's not the case.
Okay, so I agree with you. I 100% agree with you, but I also think there's something that needs to be tagged onto that. I also think that a lot of the times, particularly now, as you were saying, like I just read a minute ago, this chick is saying, I think that, women ought to have a hoe phase or get into it, like, basically explore your options, I think is really what it's coming down to. And so, yeah, do they, I 100% agree with you, John. I think that the validation side of things is definitely a part of it, but I also think that it's because on some level of consciousness, women realize that that's going to be their most marketable years. Like if you go and you look at my sexual market value graph, like her peak years are right around 22, 23 years old. And I think that women realize that, and that maybe they think that that's as marketable as they're going to be. And therefore they need to, explore their options, like, so that they don't just settle on the first thing. Like, you're out looking for a new car. You're not just going to stop with the first car that you see. You're going to go and you're going to test drive a whole bunch of other ones. We've used this before. We use this analogy all the time. Like, why would you want to buy a used car when, you can buy a fresh one with, like we were just saying, why would you want to eat an old sandwich, right? It's the same thing. I said, well, they want to try a bunch of different sandwiches to see which sandwich they want to stick with, and there's
always a better sandwich. You forget that sometimes, like, eventually there's going to be a peak sandwich.
Right.
Paralysis.
Well, that's true as well. But I think that a lot of the
eloquently put from you, Ryan, as a fellow foodie, I understand the food choice fatigue for sure.
Well, but so here, I think that on some level of consciousness, women realize that is as marketable as they're ever going to be, and they need to explore those options.
Mm-hmm. They did a study, Rolo. I know you're a big fan of studies.
Yeah.
And they took they had these jams, right? And they had two sections in the store. One had 9 samples of 9 different jams to try from, and the other one had 24 samples of 24 jams to choose from. And the one with 24 opportunities, more people sampled the jelly, but less people actually bought the jelly. Compared to the 9 section, less people sampled, but more people bought. A big thing about what was the problem with today is because dating apps are so effective that girls are literally getting slapped in the face with opportunity for dick, like from the moment they wake up. It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on LinkedIn, it's on Twitter, it's on Snapchat, it's on TikTok. It's on Seeking Arrangement. It's on OkCupid. Everywhere these girls go, there's a dude there, typically a pathetic beta, in her comments like, "Oh, sweetie, you're so beautiful. I love you." And these girls, their egos are super gassed up. Even a girl that's like a 4 out of 10, she thinks she's fucking, she thinks she's like Miley Cyrus in her prime. And then 2, these girls, when you have so much power, because being physically attractive, or at least being perceived as being physically attractive, is power. And with great power comes responsibility. And these girls don't know what to do with it. And what they usually do is follow their emotions, which is the worst thing you can do in life. And they end up getting dick down, run through. Some of them end up getting pregnant. Some of them have like 3 abortions by the time they're 27. And then they wonder like, oh shit, I have all this mental and physical baggage. Why does no man want to settle down with me? Because you played your cards wrong. Because you just believed all this, mainstream media shit talking about, oh, I'm a woman, I could basically do whatever I want and there's no repercussions for it. And now you're seeing like the fallout. I think we're kind of like at the hangover stage in American society. I think it's like the hoeing. I don't think it's like really celebrated as much anymore. I think people are starting to make a slight turn. It's on the ground level. But, like, if you look at those threads for those girls who are talking about the hoe face, that other bitch, she had a fucking tattoo on her face. Like, are you Takeshi 6ix9ine hoe? Like, what the fuck are you doing? You have a tattoo on your face? That shows me if somebody has a tattoo on their face, something is not right upstairs. So you're just seeing kind of like a hangover from all the technology we got going on as well.
Yeah, I agree. Let me put this up real quick here. This is... One of the things I do occasionally is like when these threads come up and like women are like, oh, you need to have a hoe phase, or they'll come up with the stereotypical, well, it's okay for guys to have a hoe phase, right? It's okay for men to go out and they're heroes for banging a bunch of girls, but we're hoes or we're skanks or whatever because we do the same thing. That's a double standard. Wah, wah, wah. Well, the problem with that, and I talked about this on Rich's show on Monday, because we were talking about like sort of like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We have this I think unenlightened idea that men and women are the same. And so if men are able to go out and hoe around between the ages of say 18 and 28, that women ought to be able to do that too. And why can't they do that? Well, there's consequences for that because women and men are different. And I realize that that's like saying, well, oh, it's okay for men to do it and it's not okay for women to do it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Because for men, sex and men's mating strategy is entirely different from women's, and it affects men differently. So when men have more sex partners, they don't suffer the same kind of consequences that a woman does, simply because of biology, psychology, the effect, the emotional, mental, long-term effects that it has on women. Having multiple sex partners is not the same that it does with men. That's why men have this problem, I think, with pornography, because it satisfies their innate drive, which is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. But the truth of that is that men can dissociate themselves from the sex act. They can jerk off the porn and just go right about their day. Right? They can go and do whatever they want to. It's not like they had some big emotional cosmic episode. And I think the more we feminize guys, the more they have a problem with it. The more they think that they should have a problem with it. They have whatever moral issues or psychological issues or whatever. The more feminized a guy is, the more he's not going to be able to dissociate himself from that sex act. And so here's what I show women when they start talking about like the hoe phase, or like how they should go out there and get theirs, right? And so these are the divorce statistics, or the incidence of divorce for women who have I should say, this is marital happiness. I've got another stat here to look at as well. But if you have women who have had 0 sex partners have an 80.47%. This is their own reporting, of course, but happiness level. I don't know what degree of happiness in their marriages. And then you got one. If you got one, look at the difference between one past sexual partner and 0 past sexual partners. And then and then you can check out the rest of it. So you can go up to 21. What's interesting to me is a bit in the 16 to 20 partner range is at the lowest it's going to be. But then, like, if you get past 21, they're like, screw it. I've been with enough guys, and it comes up a slight bit. This is data set number 1. And it's not like I didn't bring these up just to make anybody feel bad about things, but the fact of the matter is that, let me pull that out here. I got another one here as well. These are I forget where, I think I got these from the CDC. So let me grab this one as well. But I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see these as well, but let's put this on. And
it's so funny when you mention this stuff to the girls, like,
they lose their minds. They lose their minds. Yeah.
You tell them like, hey, I just prefer a girl that hasn't been ran through. They're like, ah. Then, and if you just common sense says this, right? If you're so empowered and stuff, and if this doesn't matter, then why do you lie about all the guys you've had sex with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why is this an issue? Why is this something? What's interesting to me, and some of the comments in that thread were talking about, well, we're normalizing women being hoes. And then, of course, there's the women who are like the female empowerment. Of course, everybody wants to blame it on feminism, when in fact it's really, I think, according to like what you guys were talking about and what Ryan was getting into as well. Okay, so let me look at this. This is for sexually transmitted diseases. And remember, these are all stats for women who have more are less likely to have stable marriages. This is the stability statistic that I just showed you a minute ago. This right here is women who have more non-marital sexual partners are more likely to be depressed. So there's the depression aspect. And of course, women are prescribed, antidepressants way more than men are. And women who have more non-marital sexual partners are less likely to be happy. So these are like the self-reported. Okay, yeah, and this is and this is like old school. So this is data sets from like 1995. I don't know what 2020 or 2019 would be, but if these were the statistics, from the CDC back in 1995, what does that say about today's women who are prescribed more and more antidepressants and
Yep.
there are actually consequences for that. That men, on the other hand, don't suffer as a result of sleeping, as having a hoe phase, right?
One of my favorite pastimes when I go back to America is watching around and just looking at all the girls who just have like resting misery face. And I'm just like, it's so satisfying to me, especially when the barista's making my coffee at Starbucks. I'm like, you wanted your empowerment and look what you did. You fucked up. And now you got to make my coffee. And I'm still in control because I'm a man.
Well, so I want to ask you guys this too, because this has been a topic, sort of the topic du jour that I've been seeing in some of the circle, at least the YouTube channels that I've been observing lately, is that there's this, I think, old school desire on the part of certainly mostly beta guys who are trying to figure things out for themselves. There's this desire to find the good girl. And I wanted to ask you guys this: does the good girl still exist? Does she, the girl next door, the good girl who just wants to start a family, and maybe she's in her hoe phase, right? Does that girl, does she still exist? Because I see a lot of these guys, particularly more like nerdy guys. Do you know who what is it, Lindsay Sterling? Do you know who Lindsay Sterling is? Lindsay Sterling is she's a violinist, and she does a lot of kind of like these video game kind of movie, or well, I think she does movies too, but she does like these video game soundtracks, music tracks. And she has her own sort of career as well as a violinist, and she goes around, she's a touring musician as well. But she's really, I think, I think one of the reasons she's so popular is because she represents this kind of good girl image. Like, this is the kind of girl that I would want to get with. She's not one of these skanks that these PUAs are telling me I need to go and spin plates. She's one of these pure good girls. There was also I'm including this in my book as well. I have an old essay called "Chasing Amy." And it was about Amy Grant. I don't know if you know who Amy Grant is, but Amy Grant is she was a Christian contemporary music. She was a musician, right? She was a singer, songwriter, that kind of stuff. And I think she ended up getting with Vince Gill, and she divorced her husband and started cheating on him with Vince Gill. I think it was Vince Gill. I hope I'm getting this right. But anyway, so she turned out to be not the good girl, the perfect little Christian girl, good girl archetype that these guys were obsessing over, because they thought that it was this shining beacon of hope in this sea of women in their hoe phase. And they're like, this is what I need to focus on. This is my quality woman. And this is why I always tell guys, the myth of the quality woman is that it's a myth, because it's an idealization that you have. But I'm looking at some of these streams, and guys are seriously talking about, I really wish I could find a girl like that girl who is, Susie Homemaker, right? That's what I'm still looking for. And are women even like trying to be the good girl archetype anymore?
I don't think so, but I also think what you need to keep in mind, and like I said earlier, the hoe phase and the good girl is relative to your condition. Like an American girl, she'll go to college and she'll get ran through by 20 guys. That's her hoe phase. Mm-hmm. A girl who grows up in, let's say, a conservative country or in a conservative social sphere, she might get ran through by one or two guys somewhere they're hidden away. But she still might have all those conservative values, because women, in a much larger degree than men, are trained to kind of be creatures of the tribe. So a woman is surrounded. That's why if you take a girl from like a conservative Eastern European country or Asian country or something, and you bring her to America, she will go from being a Susie Homemaker to being on Vanderpump Rules in like 28 seconds, because you remove the constraints that held her back, so to speak. So, and it's not saying like go to Eastern Europe and find you a girl there and then bring her back. It's just saying that the hoe phase and the peak of it is dependent on context. It's the same thing with, like, back when My dad used to tell me these stories when they got wild, and he grew up during the 60s and 70s. Now, that was a little bit of drugs,
Mm.
a little bit of alcohol, a lot of driving, and a lot of sex in the back of cars. But if you look at like the people who are really going wild now in their 20s, it's mountains of cocaine, it's yachts, it's year-long fucking benders in various lower-end countries. And it's just the extremity of the inaction of that phase has gone a bit further. Like uh, guys who were rebelling against their parents back when I was about to say when Rolo was a kid, but even he's too young for that shit. Like rebelling in the 50s was growing your hair out longer than about 7 to 8 millimeters.
Mhm.
Now rebelling against your family is going full tranny.
Mhm.
And we have to see that for what it is. And we have to be a bit relaxed about it because there's no point in acting out. It's just a matter of identifying those girls who have those qualities that you're looking for and accepting that they will fuck up because of their social environment, just like we will fuck up. Like, how many of us have been arrested? Like, I've never been arrested, luckily enough, but everyone has flaws, and it's not about, in a sense, saying you can never make a mistake. It's about how big was that mistake. Like, if a girl happened to have banged like 5 or 6 guys during a period where she was single, is that a big deal? Not really if she's 26, 27. It's a big deal if she's 17.
Yeah, it's
So,
there's certainly an age specificity to this, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because Keto Kid brought this up, and I think this is interesting too. I want to get you guys' thoughts. What are your thoughts on late 20s to mid 30s women still hoeing it up? And I think this is something that we certainly see in certainly Western cultures right now, particularly for women who I think feel like they missed out on their hoe phase, and they want. I think really the phenomenon of like cougars and stuff like that is women like wanting to making up for missing out, which is something that I've written about. Go ahead.
I don't think it's that. I don't think they're that smart. I just think that girls who get caught in that fucking cycle, they're like the average human is a dummy. And these girls, like, sometimes hoeing is all they know what to do. So like that's the only way they know how to like feel like they have value. I see girls that hoe themselves to the fucking grave. 45 years old, all she does, like, she can't do anything, but she knows how to hook up with the dude. And, you know, like literally, I think the cat phenomenon has something to do with female genetics, because I see the cat ladies in Japan too. Like, that is real. And a lot of these girls, look, there's a reason back in the day, like this, that families had strict control over the females. Like, honestly, could you imagine, Rolo, like just letting your daughter go out and fend for herself at 21?
No, no, not that. It's funny. We just did. I did a graduation ceremony with her on the lawn out at the college that she goes to. I'm not going to mention what it is, but they canceled the graduation. And so I went in, I rented a little small stage and a little PA and went out there, and we did our own little graduation with her and about like 20 friends. Right. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't. I still think that even up to a certain point, particularly as a father, I guess, I think I would probably have a different opinion of this where I had, to have a son. I think I would expect different things from a son. If my son were 22 years old, I would expect him to already be out there kicking ass and taking names, right? But for my daughter, it's a little bit different. She's doing good. I mean, don't get me wrong. You guys know, I let you guys know about what's going on in my life, but there, it's sort of a different dynamic. I think I'm more protective of her, much more than I would be for a guy, because I want, if I were to have a son, I would want him to go out and take risks that I wouldn't want my daughter to go out and take.
Yeah, you gotta preserve. It's like the genetics. You gotta preserve the females. Like, if I have a son, as soon as he turns 18, I'm like, guess who's financially independent, asshole? Congratulations, get out there and suffer. It's gonna make you strong. I don't want that if I have God forbid I have a daughter, but if I have a daughter, you have to protect her. And it's a lot of work to shelter them, take care of them. And people in the chat are asking me, do I have a good girl? I personally believe that I do have a good girl. But I will say this. I have gone on dates. I have literally gone on dates with 500 women. 500. and I got 1 out of 500, and I had to get on a plane and fly halfway across the world to find her. And she wasn't as good as I made her. A lot of you guys don't understand that you have to train your girlfriend if you want to be a man that leads the relationship. And if you want to find a woman that is naturally submissive, you are cursed with the burden of leadership, and you have to mold her. When I first met Miss MLD, she was a consumer dummy. She was like, I just want to go shopping. I was like, what are you going to do? Just buy all that shit and put it in your room? She's like, yeah. I was like, why? Because my friends do it. I'm like, and your friend's broke and dumb? They're like, yeah. I'm like, do you want to be broke and dumb? No. So what are you doing? And now she's buying Bitcoin. She's investing. She's saving money. I taught her how to cook. I taught her how to weigh out food. I taught her how to count calories. I taught her how to exercise in the gym. I taught her about, self-education. You have to cultivate and make your own good girl. And the thing is, girls have to have, they have to come to the table a moldable student. There has to be a good base. You know what I mean? Like if you buy a house and it has a good foundation, you're like, I could wreck this house and rebuild it because it has a solid foundation. But if a house doesn't have a good foundation, that's a garbage house. And when a girl goes out and sucks an army of dicks, that erodes away at her foundation. So I think that's, yes, good girls do exist in the West, very few and far between. But also the thing about a good girl, it's like she's not just a good girl and she stays a good girl. You have to keep her that way. You have to train her. You have to make sure that you take care of her as well as she has to take care of you in the relationship as well. It's not just like, oh, like, hey, I got my good girl. Here she is. She's never going to change. She's going to do everything I want. Like, I just had to push this button. She came out this fucking vending machine. And that's the big difference between guys that think they want a good girl and the reality of having a good girl.
Well, I think that John is on point with that. Let me just say that they may have quality women in Japan, but they do not have quality internet connections in Toronto, apparently.
Yeah.
I think John is very right that it's kind of with the expectations, because like a girl should come from a family, and I think men should too. You should come from a family that has expectations of you, so that you're forced to live up to things and abide to standards and to be a good person. Like, and all of those are culturally different what the standards are going to be. But for men, they generally tend to be something like, don't be an asshole, know how to take care of yourself, know how to lead to a certain degree. And for girls, it's usually related to, be empathic, be helpful, don't be a pain in the ass, because the biggest issue I see with most girls now is that their behavior is writing checks that their pussy can't cash.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest issue is men don't actually call them out on it, because they're actually so happy that they're actually getting laid that they don't call them out on when they're acting out of pocket, as our good friend on that show that shall not be mentioned would say. And to me, that's the big thing. Like, when your girl misbehaves, if she comes from a family where that was called out by usually her father, she will be amenable to you calling that out when she's acting out of pocket. And because to me, like, the biggest negative in women, it's not their notch count, it's not, the fact that they tend to spend money frivolously, it's the fact that they're a pain in my ass. Like, I don't like things that are a pain in my ass. And if that's a girl nagging me, if that's work nagging me, if that's some idiot on my Twitter trying to act tough, I don't really care. I just don't deal with it. And you draw those solid boundaries, and she can make the choice if she wants to exist within those boundaries or not. It's up to her.
Right.
If she wants to exist within those boundaries, it'll be fine. If she doesn't, then she can go do something else. And I think that's the major thing that rarely gets mentioned with the manosphere. Like, a lot of it is about a need to control. Like, a lot of these guys, they come here because they're like, how do I get this girl to fall in love with me? How do I get my girl to do this? How do I get my girl to do that? And you're asking the wrong freaking question, because the question is, how do I get a girl who will be happy within the boundaries I've defined that I want my girl to be within?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think, Rolo, you had a great story I think it's about 9 months ago, when you said that some makeup seller or something came to your place, or to your wife's place of work, and She was like, I had to call my husband and ask if it's okay if I buy some makeup.
Mm-hmm.
And all her coworkers like, oh my God, he's so controlling. No, that's actually good behavior
No,
because
it was,
she's actually consulting you.
I'll tell you the story real quick. Actually, it was I was working at a studio one time, and my wife called me up while I was on my lunch break, and I was sort of with the girls who were in the office that I worked in, and it was me and one other guy, and all the rest of the department was females. And she called me up, and for what, of course, nosy women, they like to listen to your conversation. And so she called me up on my cell phone, and she says, I want to get this and this from this makeup company or whatever. Can I spend the money, right? Because it was like $100. And I go, yeah, okay, that's fine. No worries. Yeah, she called me up and everything. And then like I hung up and I went back to eating, and the women are looking at me, staring at me across the table. And I'm like, what the fuck? And they're like, I can't believe she has to call you for permission to get, $100 for makeup. I go, yeah, because that's how this works, right? I mean, I'm the one that's making the decisions here for things like that. And they just lost their minds. And granted, all these women who had a problem with me were either divorced or they were remarried to the same guy that they divorced once before.
Man, Rollo, you are so nice, dude. If anybody had the audacity to say it, I'd be like, listen here, you fucking whore. Who the fuck are you to come in here and tell me some shit about my relationship? Yeah. I'm sorry that your fucking dried up eggs couldn't get fertilized because you sucked your way through the fucking linebackers at your high school. But I am not here for you to socially commentate on my relationship. So you can shut the fuck up. And you'll do nothing about this. I don't tolerate that shit because
they lose their minds when a man is in any way recognized as an authority, because they've lived pretty much like the girls who are in this thread who are talking about how you need to go get yours, go have a hoe phase, have a party, go through your party phase, girl. It's you'll be a better person for it. You'll feel better at the end of it, because I think at some point, like, it wouldn't be a phase if it was something that was supposed to be permanent. If it was just like, I'm going to live my life like this the whole time. No, it's a phase, and women understand that it's a phase. And so there's this kind of preconception that they're entitled to that. They're entitled to the authority that has been afforded to them over the course of really since the sexual revolution now, because as you guys were saying before, we're in a state right now, I think it's, socially, where women are the default authority. Like, I got into it just this morning with Suzanne Van. Well, I didn't get into it, but like I was sort of countering a lot of what Suzanne Vanker was saying in her latest essay or latest article, or whatever, talking about how women are bossy and in control of marriages right now because men they're not equipped for emotional warfare, and so therefore they abdicate their authority. And I'm like, no, they abdicate their authority because that's the way society has been set up for the last 55 years. That's what, like, men simply in marriage, they don't have any authority. The most authority a man will have is outside of marriage. So when you're inside of marriage and you have a wife who is defaulting to your authority, it freaks other women out because they believe that, it's got to be even. Either they believe in this like egalitarian fantasy, or it's, well, how come she has to default to your authority? And it's like, well, because that's the marriage that I have, right? I'm the one that's making the decisions. I'm the one that's pulling the strings here. And I'm setting the course for where we're going as a family, what we're going to do, where we're going to spend our money, where we're going to vacation, where we're going to do this, all this kind of stuff. And it starts right here. It starts with me. And if it doesn't start with me, then it's like comply or goodbye, right? That's the best. That's the only way. That's the only authority. The only power I have is to walk away, particularly when you're married, particularly when you, if you decide that you want to be in a monogamous, socially enforced monogamous relationship, the only real authority that a man has is the ability to walk away. And if that's not something that someone's comfortable with, then those are the, like Carl was saying, those are the boundaries, and they have to be enforced. Not talked about, not explicated, but demonstrated. And so when I did something like that, women lose their minds because they presume that the default position of a man is to be the one who is either even Steven or should be beneath the woman, and the woman is the one.
They want him beneath. They want to be, but these bitches, listen, these girls are the most miserable. The one that have to comment on your relationship, they're the ones that want to be in that type of relationship the most.
They're mad vicariously through you, though. That's the thing. Exactly. I wouldn't even get mad at them, though, John, like you did.
I'm
like,
not
dude,
getting
you wanna
mad, but
get
I'm
mad,
just saying
make
that
us a little
like
snide comment about, hey, whatever happened to that divorce? Did you get half? Or
no,
like,
no. My favorite one is now show me on this doll where the last man hurt you. But
Yeah, more or less. All right.
you know, but for me though, like when I'm like that, because that really gets me upset because they want to they look at one piece of your relationship. This is anybody that comments on my relationship, right? They look at one piece of your relationship, but where was this fucking whore when my girlfriend's dog died and she was crying to me for an entire fucking week and I'm having to take her to Disney World and console her? Where was this bitch when my girlfriend's grandmother died and I had to take care of her? I had to tell her everything's going to be okay. Where was this chick when my girlfriend was sick and I had to take care of her? Or when I had to fucking fly business class with her and I paying $2,000 for her fucking ticket? This economy class bitch has no fucking right to have any kind of statement on our relationship. So I get righteously angry. I'm like, and men need to speak up because these bitches are so delusional. They think they can just comment on a fucking person's relationship, a complete stranger. Like, this is how bad it is in America, right? And this is not like a rant to like instill woe or whatever, but my girlfriend, I speak better English than my girlfriend, obviously, right? And we went to a restaurant in America, and I noticed multiple times that when we would walk in there, the staff would automatically default and look to her as if she was in control. And I'm like, listen, bitch, I'm paying the bills. Like, you need this is old school. I'm in charge, right? But it's just hilarious that that's how it's set up. And it's really the men of America that have failed and let that happen. That's the real truth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's not changing. So I don't take it too seriously. I kind of almost laugh at it. Because what else are you going to do? You can get mad, but it doesn't change anything. And as soon as you get mad, the girls look at him like, well, he's a dick. And then they can write it off. But instead,
stay the fuck out of my relationship.
Never, like Royce, best article I think he ever wrote is that never take them too seriously. And he mentioned how DC women dating them, always constantly testing them, constantly playing power games. And he noticed the best thing he ever did was just laugh. And he came up with I think was he the first one with the Muse Mastery, Rollo, or was there somebody before him?
I think it might have been Pook too, but I don't know. It was right around that same time.
Right, around the same time. Yeah, just
talking about
Muse Mastery. Of course, these like angry, infertile chicks are gonna get mad that Rollo had to give his wife the okay. And it's not even that he had to give her permission. It was more like veto authority. It's soft power, because we don't have hard power now as a guy. You can't. The rule of thumb doesn't exist anymore. Anything you could do that would have any authority is basically gone, weeded out, fine. So all you got is soft power. If you want to stick with me, here's my rules, take it or leave it. And then most girls, if you're worth a damn, will take it.
These are
opt-in authority. It's a soft power, and it's a skill that most guys don't have because they like the idea of being the warrior class that conquers the world, and you bitch, you will respect me. It's like, no, man.
Yeah. So I was using some of this data for part of book 4 here. This is a purchasing power of women. $7 trillion is contributed by women to the United States in consumer and business spending. Okay, not earning, spending. Okay. 91% of women say they think advertisers do not understand them, although they understand them very well. In fact, that's actually beneficial to that they believe that to the advertisers. 85% of purchases and purchase influences are made by women. 50% of products typically marketed to men are purchased by women. 2/3 of consumer wealth in the United States will belong to women within the next decade. So we need to put a few things in perspective here. 60% of all personal wealth in the United States is held by women. All stock ownership in the United States, women control 50% of that. And I won't go into all of these details here, but the most important one was, I thought this was really good. Over the course of a family's life, 90% of married women will control its wealth. That is what I'm talking about. That's the presumption of control. The presumption that a woman is going to be in that position of authority, like the man is not. It's always even Steven, but look who's making the decisions here. Look who's buying the cars, homes, new PCs, vacations, things like that. These are stats, and what are this? I think this is like 2018 or 2017 when this came out. So I don't even know what it is for right now or what it's going to be in the next decade. But I mean, let's be honest here. women feel entitled to being able to spend whatever the hell it is that they want to spend. It's when it comes to her money, it's her money, and when it comes to his money, that it's our money, or it's still.
Yeah, that's
her
why
money.
you don't give them access to the credit cards, and you keep separate accounts.
Right, and
I was going to say one thing to John though. Like, I get why you want to react the way you do, but I don't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing they got a rise out of me. Because part of that, part of it is like
I enjoy shit talking these. This is selfish.
I get that you enjoy it. I get that you enjoy it. It's just like if the women feel like, okay, I can get a rise out of this guy by poking at his authority, she will keep doing that.
No, if you raise your voice, they'll get intimidated. They won't do it. If you put a good scare in them, they won't. They won't stick up to you. They will not.
No, they won't, but they will shit talk you behind your back. The ideal thing, like what I like to do, is just
in economy class,
look past them. The way I say it is just look past them, act like they don't exist. Everything you said about them is true, but why is it so important for you to say it? I get it. It's satisfaction when you can tell them, hey, listen, you dried up hoe. If you'd spent your 20s not getting dicked down by Sterling Cooper and the other 19 heroes on the porn star Avengers, that would have been great. But at the same time, when you're doing that, you're kind of playing into the image of you as the asshole. That's going to be a very easy thing for her to sell across afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that's kind of like that kind of goes to this too. I don't want to leave her better, but I feel guilty thinking I'm one more number in her unhappiness statistic when spinning plates. How do I get over that? I get what you're saying. How do you I guess really do you even care, Carl? Do you even care whether or not she sees you as an asshole? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that keeps.
No, you don't. But it's my biggest thing is image control, and it's just don't be looked, because if, let's say, you're in a relationship and it ends badly, and you've been observed, verbally harassing a million people. You've been known to go off on women who question your authority. If that charge comes against you, and they can trump up 100 pissed off hoes to come into that courtroom, what chances do you actually have?
The chances of that happening are not very, very slim. The point I'm trying to make it is because for the guys that are watching, the women are acting like this on a larger scale because guys in a whole have just showed women that they'll fucking take it. Dude, girls in Japan, girls in China, girls in Russia, they would never do that shit to Rolo. Russian dudes knock these bitches out, okay? And I'm just saying, if there wants to be a change in your inner area with regards to respect to you, right? These girls, they're cowards. If you stand up to them, they will not challenge you. And the probability of some dumb girl who's shaming Rolo for $100, she's not going to go amass all her friends. She probably doesn't even have 100 friends. That kind of girl is a walking misery. So I'm a big fan of just establishing your dominance over them and putting them in there and checking them, because another thing is that these women, they're all about preserving their social credit score, and they don't want to be shamed in public. And then, the big thing, if you look at society, the big rule is this, it's my relationship, it's my marriage, and you have no say in it, and you can shut the fuck up. And that a man or a woman can say that. That's socially in the okay right now.
Right. I keep seeing this, again, going back to what Suzanne Vanker was talking about in her thing. I think there's this, particularly from the TradCon set, there is a desire for guys to man up, to take the authority, to do exactly what I did and what John is discussing here. But then you're also going to run into the fact that when it comes to social empowerment, if you look at the Duluth model of feminism, if you look at who has the real enforceable authority in a marriage, men have more authority outside of marriage than they do inside of marriage today. And so you're going to get guys, and maybe this is sort of a counterpoint to that. You're going to get guys who are going to go, well, it doesn't matter how alpha you are in your marriage. It doesn't matter how much of a badass that you think you are. because at the end of the day, you can't out alpha the state, right? I mean,
that's why you don't get married in America, boys.
Yeah, exactly. And people wonder why you say, well, Rollo's anti-marriage, but he's married. I'm like, yeah, well, different. I'm not you, and I'm not in a situation right now where, yeah. Do I realize that I could be taken to the cleaners tomorrow? Sure. Yes, exactly. And those are the risks that I take. And so as a result, this is the kind of relationship that I have to insist upon. And this is the, I've got to be on top of my game. I've got to make a lot of money. I've got to be the man, right? I've got to be the guy who is on top of his game, the guy who has the ability to enforce what authority is afforded to a guy in marriage. That's what I'm getting at. And so I'm not suggesting anybody do that. In fact, I would warn you against it, because most guys can't do that. They don't have the understanding to do those things. They don't understand. If you're coming here and you're in the manosphere, or you're going to red pill stuff, and you're trying to understand women, you're probably not cut out to have an authoritative, dominant marriage as a guy in marriage. You probably aren't that guy. So yes, it's probably best for you not to get married, because as I said, you will have more authority outside of marriage than you will inside of marriage. Centra
Base in the chat says it perfectly. He says foreign women don't pull this shit because there's not the financial safety net that trains American women. The cuntier they are, the more cash prizes they receive. A lot of girls, like I said, Rollo, when I was on that Twitch stream, when I did the game with those chicks, and you did the commentary with me, you know what the girls were asking the guys? They're like, keep in mind, these girls are 19 and 23. They're saying, hey, would you get married to us? And the guy's like, yeah, sure. She's like, would you make us sign a prenup? And then the guy's like, yeah, definitely. And she's like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. So like the average girl in America now knows that they can bleed a dude through the divorce system and literally have like payments for life if they play their cards right. Mm-hmm. So that's why this is happening in the States, because they know it's a pseudo confidence. When you look at all the fucking, they got this little box here, all the power that women have, it's just the power to run and tell somebody to save them. What happens? You have a fight with your girlfriend. Okay, well, she's going to fucking call the police and make a fake domestic violence report against you, and then now you're going to go to jail. Or, she feels like emotionally battered in the marriage. She calls the state. She gets the courts to come after you. If you call a girl a cunt or something on social media, she presses the report button. She calls the platform, and then they remove the man, and they ban the man because they are targeting women, because women spend more money than men, and women are more valuable on the platform than men. And girls know this. That's why there's a big movement happening now with men creating these sites that are decentralized, that are not allowing, they're 100% censorship free. So because a lot of girls, like humans in general, they're using this system to manipulate and get their advantage from the whole setup.
Let me jump on this real quick. This is pretty good. Graham Miller says, shouldn't a Western man who never have seen a correctly modeled relationship do some international travel to get some firsthand experience on how to mold his girlfriend?
No, because you need to get some sexual experience in the world to decide what you like. Like for me, personally, extroverted girls, I fucking hate them. A girl talks too much, I'm like, yo, shut the fuck up. I do not like extroverted girls whatsoever. I like introverted girls. I want to run my mouth in a relationship. I'm an extrovert. A relationship with another extrovert girl is like hell to me, but it's personal to me. I like girls really that are like kind of like that plain Jane girl next door kind of look. I don't like turbo whores. I don't like ratchet girls. I don't like super luxury girls. I just like the kind of the girl next door look. That's like really like, I get off on that. I'm like, oh my God, she looks so plain. That's sexy. It's just my thing. But you have to get out there, Graham, and decide what it is you like. And the only way you do that is by going out and trying different relationships, dating and banging all these other girls, and kind of deciding what you like.
Yeah, I want to get on this other one too, because this is actually in my notes, and I knew something like this was going to come up, so I'm going to throw this out there. So anything more than 0 previous sexual partners gives you less than an 80% marriage success. in 1995. Rates then shouldn't men sport fuck non-virgins and marry virgins. No hymen, no diamond makes sense, right? I get this a lot because a lot of guys will throw, and I knew this was going to happen because I expect this response from women usually, because they'll say, well, if men would be better, then women wouldn't have a hoe phase. If men were more responsible and if they didn't create a market for OnlyFans, then women wouldn't go on OnlyFans and do what they sell their ass on OnlyFans. If it weren't for the demand of men, women wouldn't be the supply for those demands. And I think that's kind of disingenuous, to be honest, because regardless of whether, women know that what men want, okay? And particularly, like, the reason that they have a hoe phase in the first place is because they know what men want, right? The most power a woman is going to have, the most agency that a woman has at any point in her life is going to be right around 22, 23 years old, because that's when they are at their sexual market value peak. And that's when guys bend over backwards to do pretty much anything for them. And so you get, women take this to the logical extreme, right? OnlyFans, cam girls, selling your jars of pee on, for $39.99 to thirsty guys, right? That kind of selling your bathwater, those kinds of things. And people will say, well, aren't men behind that? Yeah, they are, because they, if what was it, Delphine, whatever her name is?
Delphine.
Bella, she's completely stage managed, and a lot of the cam girls are stage managed, but there's a lot more that aren't. But it's the fact remains is that, there's always going to be that demand. That demand's not going to change, because that's simply human nature, right? That's evolution. And we lost Carl. Carl, thanks for joining us today. And Ryan's out today, now too, because he just told me he had
my plan to take over Rule Zero is almost complete, Rollo.
Here, right? Yeah, that's fine. Carl, thanks for joining us today. I much appreciated it. But I want to admit, we can talk about this. I think that that's kind of disingenuous, because there's always going to, people want to feel good. Guys want to get laid. If you're a drug dealer, I've sold alcohol for a better part of my life, right? Yep. If I'm not doing it, somebody else is going to be doing it. Yep. And at least I can sort of take some of that, the revenue from that, and turn it around and try to help guys out, like to keep the noose off their neck. So in a way, just sort of depends on the context of how you're doing this. So yeah, it makes sense that a young woman who's 23 years old and she can make, hundreds of thousands of dollars off of OnlyFans or like I said, selling jars of bathwater or something like that. Yeah, it makes sense that she's going to do that. But don't blame it on the guys for wanting to buy that. They're going to do that anyways. And she's it's just supply and demand. She's just responding to what the market wants. Mm-hmm. And so you can say, well, guys need to just back up and we would have more successful marriages and we would have more successful relationships if guys would just keep it in their pants. Well, okay. It's funny how particularly when we talk about abortion, or we talk about guys being players. Well, if the guy could have kept it in his pants, then it would it's easier to blame a guy to say well, he's a player. He's having lots and lots of meaningless sex. And it's easier to shame that guy and tell that guy than it is to say, girl, keep your legs shut.
What's meaningful sex?
Yeah. I meant to bang everyone.
What is meaningful sex?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's funny. I think what meaningful sex is for these guys is it's this idea that they've got their good girl and they have an emotional investment in her and they're going to start a family, particularly if you talk to the religious set. I get this all the time as guys. And the most extreme example of this is I'll get guys who will say, well, you shouldn't even be having sex with your wife unless you're using it to have babies. It's only for procreation. It's not for recreation. It's only for procreation. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a really... okay, if that's good for you, go right ahead. But you're going to be really struggling to find the good girl, and that's why I wanted to ask you as well as the good girl thing. Is I was looking at some of these other channels, like I said before, and a lot of guys really still are invested in the girl next door. They're still invested in that. They can find that girl. Like this guy was just saying, shouldn't we look for the perfect little virgin and put a ring on that one while we bang random hoes in their hoe phase?
That's a guy typing.
That's a fantasy, man.
That's a guy typing right there, Rollo, who doesn't have the sexual experience that we have.
Mm-hmm.
That's a guy who's probably slept with one or two girls, if not zero.
Right. And people will say like, "Oh, Rollo, you're a hypocrite. You wouldn't want your daughter to have like a 40 plus notch count like you have." Right. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't, because I'm a guy and she's a woman. She's a young woman. And I'm sorry, that's one of the differences when we talk about sexual, gender differences, which are like evolved, psychological, physiological. That is one of those differences. Random sex with random guys impacts women differently. And one of the ways that it does is and I've said this before, like when I'm talking about like dynamics like the alpha widow, like people say, well, why shouldn't they be able to do that? Why can't they? It's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Like, shouldn't she go out and have some sort of, sow her wild oats and get it out of her system? I'm like, you're talking about girls as if they are guys. Like guy, yeah, maybe he needs to go out and bang 50, 100 girls, whatever, to get it out of his system, so that once he gets to be about 30 some odd years old, he knows enough about female nature, and he knows how to be dominant in a relationship, and he knows how to actually have sex with a woman, and he knows what to expect from women at different phases, and to know what he wants and what he doesn't want.
And a big part of that too. Big part of that too is like, like even us, like, you're in your 50s, I'm 34. I still want to have sex, like a lot. But what having this sexual understanding that you have and the sexual experience, it doesn't completely smite down your sexual hunger, but it does blunt it and gives you a little bit more of a rational male approach to things.
Right. Well, and let's look at it from a biological standpoint. Once you get into, like, I can show you the research, I can show you the studies that once a man gets into a long-term relationship, his testosterone levels go down. Just simply a biological evolutionary fact that when you get married, your T levels will drop. And you know what? Once you get divorced, they'll come back up again. That's the way that nature made you. Because once you're out of that, and once you've moved on, it triggers something in your pituitary gland. I don't know what, but your T levels will increase once you go through a divorce and you get up, because there's the potential for you to actually reproduce again and have sex with another girl, right? Why is it the natural thing for guys who know that they're going to be divorced, or women for sure, like they get back in the gym almost immediately when they go, you know what, I'm going to leave Joe, and boy, it's not going to happen for another 6 to 8 months. But once the papers are signed, I want to be out there in the sexual marketplace. So what do? Is they start, I'm going to get a personal trainer like 6 months before. That's like one of those signs that guys like say, well, like the 10 signs that your girl is cheating on you, or 10 signs that you're headed for a breakup or a divorce. Yeah, one of those signs is she's in the gym like a freaking animal again, because she knows that that's what she's doing. Well, guess what? Guys do the same thing. And you know what? Even if you're not getting into the gym, there's something that triggers in your brain, like for whatever peripheral reason, I don't know what, but your testosterone will come back up. And so, like, when I listen to like TED Talks when I'm talking about like how your testosterone drops when you're in marriage, I look at this and I go, well, the reason for that is because there needs to be, like, the guy needs to parentally invest in his children. He needs to be the guy who's there, focused on, being the father, the woman's being the mother, for family formation and for like the survival of the species. That makes sense. But guess what? Your T level still goes down. By order of degree, right? I mean, if you're a high T guy and really yoked and you're an alpha kind of guy, it's going to drop
all the time, like me.
Yeah. It's going to drop, but it's not going to drop as precipitously as if you were already sort of this beta male guy in the first place. But it's meant to foment, connections, emotional investments with the woman you're with, so that you can raise children. Exactly. That's the evolutionary nuts and bolts behind that.
And I notice it too. Like when Miss MLD comes around, like I'm not as aggressive. Like something about a woman being around, it just, you have no choice. It just does kind of calm you down. Like you just can't be a savage. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, but when she's gone, I'm calling Myron Gaines. I'm calling Charlie from Cultivate Crypto. I'm calling my boy Josh from eLive Program. I'm calling all the guys, like, let's take over. Let's educate these men. Let's make an army of hot dudes. Like, we got to make, more videos. We got to optimize our reach. We got to do live events, I'm like ready to like take over the world. But when she comes over, she's like, do you want to eat these chocolate covered Oreos? I'm like, yes, give me the damn box. You know what I mean? It's just, it's true.
This is good here. Richard says, most girls will have a hoe phase. Yeah, particularly now in Western society. Yes, you're going to be dealing with that. Sorry, that's one of the unfortunate consequences of the globalizing sexual marketplace. So yes, you might be able to dodge it for a little while in Poland or Japan or wherever, but those girls have cell phones like anybody else too. So have a hoe phase. How do you screen for it in an LTR? I'm seeing says she regrets that phase and she's 30 years old. Of course she is. She's smack dab in her Epiphany phase. Yeah. This is, I've done my own shows about
Women
this.
Cry when they turn 30.
Oh yeah, when they hit 29, they seriously, when guys, like, they talk about how guys have their midlife crisis like right around like 40 or something like that. Mm-hmm. Women have their sort of Epiphany phase crisis, and that's when they start looking for God. That's when they want to get right with God. I've finished my journey of self-discovery. I went through my hoe phase. I can't lock down a bad boy. They're exciting and fun, but I need a guy with some benefits. I got these kids. Can you help me out? They get back to church. They suddenly reconnect with family. They decide that they want to sort of get right with the world. And that's when you'll hear women complain about, where are the nice guys? Where are the guys who are supposed to save me at 30, 31 years old, so that I'm not a lonely old person when I get into my 40s or whatever. And again, if you go and you read my second book, which is Preventive Medicine, there's a timeline in there, and I explain this in really in depth about how women will go from like right around sometimes it starts a little bit earlier, maybe at 28, but 29 to 31 is right about where the average woman's Epiphany phase starts. I pegged it right there because if you look at the average age of first marriage right now, for men it's 30 and for women it's 28. And that's right around that time where women start going, well, I need to settle down. You'll hear women at this phase, they'll say, my biological clock is ticking. And really, their biological clock, if there is such a thing, started ticking back when they were 22 or 23 at the peak of their fertility, not at 29, 30, 31, when it's more difficult for them to conceive and to have more babies and all that good stuff, which is another fallout, another reason why having a hoe phase for women and not men is deleterious to their life and their life strategy. So it's almost like this 0 hour confession. Like they know that their sexual market value is decaying, and then you figure their peak is at 23, and then right around 32 or 33 is when, like 10 years difference right there. That's when most women hit the wall. And I don't mean hit the wall physically, but they hit it mentally. Yeah. So they're looking back on that, and they've been through a hoe phase. They've been through their party years. They know what was possible for them back then, and they know that at 33 they could no way compete with their 23-year-old self.
Yeah, so I think it's more of like I don't think it's more of a biological clock ticking. I think it's more of like they're realizing that they're not getting the attention.
Yes,
they're not getting the attention. Like shit. Like, and then you know what it is? The reality is those lines in their face start getting a little bit more clear. The titties are sagging a little bit more. She's starting to get the little armpit, wrinkles.
Have to work harder in the gym if they're in the gym at all. Yeah.
And she starts to hate younger girls. She sees like these little 21-year-olds coming, like, look at this little slut wearing that dress. You know what I mean?
And hating on the men who love women, all men who love women at that particular age. Again, that's why they call it Forever 21, not Forever 31 or 40.
Not even Forever 27. Like, get out of here. Get that wheelchair pussy out of here.
Yeah. So there's that. So you've got this. Vince, I'll get to your real quick. Actually, let's just do it right now. Vince says, how do you compare hoe phase from Japan to the United States? I think you're the only one qualified to answer this.
Well, I mean, with the entire, it all goes down to the family, right? Like, you can literally shame a girl in Japan if you're like, I'm going to tell your dad that you're being a bitch. And she'll be like, okay, stop. Like, please, don't tell my family. Don't. Like, girls, like, respect their families still in Japan. Like how your daughter respects you, Rolo. And like, if you tell her something like, hey, baby, don't do that shit. Daddy don't like that. you know, she'll respect you and she'll listen to your wishes. Where most girls in America are like, fuck you, dad. You know, you ain't shit. You know what I mean? Because they've been watching, you know, man bashing propaganda in the media, on television, in media, on social media since age 13 when they got a smartphone. So they're all brainwashed. But here, the hoe phase is not, it's not as prevalent, I would say. Japanese girls, okay, girls from Tokyo, I don't trust girls from Tokyo, right? I see that they're city girls, but I would say the hoe phase here, if the girl, I mean, it's kind of universal. If the girl has a bad dad or like or no dad present, which is a lot more rare in Japan because they're very, very nuclear family based over here. She will go through her super, super hoe phase. Like Miss MLD has this hoe ass friend. Her name is She-Ho. Okay. And she puts the hoe in She-Ho. And this girl cannot keep a relationship to save her fucking life. She is bouncing from dick to dick. She has a bad relationship with her dad. And all she's doing is like and she's, of course, she's infected with like, you know, reposting shit that Beyonce said, like, you know, no man is worthy of me and blah, blah, blah. Typical trash. So the hoe phase here is not as prevalent and it's not as mainstream. It's very looked down upon. Like it's not all over America. Like Japanese society is very conservative and still very traditional in many ways. So that's what I would say the difference between America. America is very, very crass and crude with the day-to-day life. And like Americans in general are just a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. My concern is this though, is like, it's funny to talk about girls in different countries. I mean, we hear about how girls in Poland are, or girls in Japan are. I think it was, I forget who the guy was, but he did some sort of, I don't want to call it a documentary, but he did some sort of video, I know, something like, I guess a documentary is what you call it. The guy who learned game in, was it Adam Forney? It might have been, something Forney. I can't remember his first name. Or Matt Forney. He went to the Philippines. And he thought that it was going to be like Pussy Paradise, right? Roosh has written about that as well. Like he goes off and like Roosh went to Poland and he thought that Poland was like the promised land when it came to women. Yeah. He leaves for 3 years and comes back looking like, okay, well now I'm ready to find a wife. I know game well enough. I should be able to find a chick. And poof, they're all gone. Or they don't, or they know his game, or they don't want to have anything to do with him anymore. And I would say that at least part of that, I mean, there might be something about Roosh, but it might, but I'd say at least part of that is because of the expansion of the global sexual marketplace. So you've got women in India, you got women in South Africa, you got women in, Czech Republic, you got women all over the world with cell phones, and they're all subscribing to a westernized feminism or westernized entitlements for women. Now, some women are, it's a generational thing and a cultural thing, of course. But when you go and you look at women in Iran who are dancing on,
I think we need to share a picture of Matt Forney for
context. Let's be you want to
take a look at this is Matt Forney, just so you guys know. Like this guy can't even find his belly button. He ain't gonna find a fucking quality woman. I'm sorry.
You might have game, but you don't have enough game for that.
Look, if you really have game, you don't let yourself look like this. Okay. Period. Absolutely, there's no excuse.
Matt Forney used to have a really great website called Imalafidi, and I thought it was sort of like the forerunner to like Return of Kings, and this was way back in the day. This was like back in the late 2000s, and it was actually a fairly decent aggregate blog for guys, and it was sort of like the Spearhead. It was sort of an answer to the Spearhead, and both those blogs are gone, and of course, Return of Kings is gone now as well. But I mean, back in the day, you had people turned into different people, I guess. But wow. But I wanted to make the point that the global sexual marketplace is expanding right now. So, the women in Belarus are going to say, well, I need a guy who's 6'4" and he's got to, have a lot of money and he's got to drive a fancy car and blah, 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 because that's what I'm entitled to because I'm a hot girl in Belarus. And, that's what I deserve. Of course, that's going to, like I said before, that's going to go against like cultural norms or even maybe even ethnic norms as well. But that's changing. We're seeing right before our eyes, we're seeing globalization on a scale that is not just about like economics. It's about sexual marketplace. It's about cultural marketplace. And what is being exported in the global sexual marketplace is a militant feminism. It's what I keep coming back to this, like I have been doing for the last 20 years. It's the feminine imperative is being exported all across the world. So
it is slowly being like I do see it here, but it's getting pretty rejected too in Japan. I know, and on China they have the Great Firewall of China too, so the propaganda doesn't get in there. I would say the worst nation for feminism in Asia is definitely Korea, and they recently took a huge blow because you remember when they had the first Korean female president before President Moon right now. And she was also the first Korean president to be impeached because she was the first woman Korean president. And she was also the first Korean president to be impeached because she was caught being manipulated by an oligarchy for like bribes and manipulating things with corporations for money and things like that.
Yeah, so there's always going to be a need for a female empowerment. If you look at the Elizabeth Holmes situation where I think she got busted for embezzlement or something. Like everybody wanted her to be like the female Steve Jobs. They want everybody. Like if you go, I could show you that. I even saved the screenshots. I have shots of her on the cover of like Fortune, Forbes, and everybody wanted her to be like the new Steve Jobs. They really wanted that female girl who was going to be the innovator. And it turns out she was a complete fraud, and nobody says a thing about it. Had that been a guy who everybody built up, and like tomorrow, let's just say Elon Musk decided suddenly he turns out he's a fraud. He whatever he's doing, like we built him up to be something that he's not, and he falls from grace. We will hammer that guy, but we will not hammer Elizabeth Holmes because she represented this image or this fantasy of female power, empowerment, and entitlement that we really, really wanted to believe and we really wanted to sign on with. And why? Because we've been exporting the feminine imperative really for the last maybe 20 years now since the internet sort of became what it is. Nebula says women never tell the truth about their pasts. Yeah, well, guess what does tell the truth about their pasts? The internet doesn't forget.
Yep.
And this is something I kind of wanted to throw out there. One of the most popular posts that I've ever put up on the Rational Mail was a post called "Saving the Best," and it was about this guy who came across a sex tape that his sort of sexless, frigid wife had recorded when she was in her hoe phase, when she was 23 years old. Now, this is like a video recording, right? This is old VHS kind of stuff. So women at that age are cool with making amateur porn from back in, like, say, the late 90s, and that's being discovered by guys who are in the 2000s, because I think I wrote that in the 2000s, for early 2010s, I think. So you have that, but now we have documentation of women's hoe phase on Instagram, on Snapchat, on OnlyFans. It's going to be impossible for women to evade or to get away from what their sexual past was online. And it's like, was it you or somebody else who was saying that like Instagram is now the #1 dating platform for men and women, because the first thing people do is they go and they look at their Insta to see what they're about and see who their friends are like and to see what they've done in their past and who are their ex-girlfriends and who's following them and how popular are they. And it's not about so much, granted, you can get on Tinder and go, get a random hookup. But if you're looking at a guy, women looking at a guy or guys looking at a woman, you go to their Instagram page and you see what they were all about. Well, it doesn't take a freaking rocket scientist to figure out, has this chick done amateur porn? Is what she's done in her past and her party years, is that something that you can live with? Who are her ex-boyfriends? The last thing I wanted to say is that when women you want to know why the divorce statistics are what they are. You want to know why a virgin bride is like the holy grail of, beta male desire, is because, first of all, the virgin bride is ignorant and has no sexual past, right? She's untouched and unblemished. Human males have been prizing virginity for a very long time, because it is the only way to know that that woman has not been with another guy and is not, it doesn't come with baggage, doesn't come with, sexual hangups, but it also means that you're the first guy to ever plant a flag on that. Mm-hmm. And the likelihood is, you want to know why women attach more to one guy or zero guys or two guys, is because they've had less guys in their past who could be the alpha male that they would use as the benchmark for any guy that came after them. And that's how you get situations like the saving the best thing. The guy goes, well, she'll go and she'll have sex with this guy. She broke rules to have sex with the alpha. She jumped all over it. She's having sex with these guys. Here it is, black and white. I'm watching the video. She is enthusiastically banging the hell out of these guys in a way that she has told me that she's uncomfortable having sex. Why? Well, maybe she's a different person. It's an emotional thing. No, it's not. You're not the guy that she wants to break the rules for. And when you see that in black and white, women have a real problem with that now. And so you will say, oh, well, we girls need to have a hoe phase. Well, okay, but there's consequences that come with that now. And there's documentation, video evidence that doesn't go away as a result of that.
That's the big X factor. Like what with men and stuff. And we have a hilarious comment by Richard Cooper's used TRT needle in the chat. I just love the username. But the technology is the great equalizer for men. Like how now, like I said, the Arizona Cardinals cheerleader, she said this dude was beating her ass and called the cops, and the cops came there to take him away. And he's like, what the hell? Like, she said I was beating her ass. He's like, no, he's like, I'm 1,000% not doing that. And she was like, yeah, he is. And he's like, okay, well, time out. I have a home security system. And he whipped out the fucking digital copy, showed the cops. And guess what? Arizona is one of those states where when you call the police for domestic violence, just like Florida, somebody has to go to jail. Mm-hmm. It's one of the parties has to go to jail. 9 times out of 10, the guy's just a clown. He doesn't know how to defend himself legally. But in that situation, she went to jail. Same thing with the internet documentation. Like, it doesn't matter if you delete it. The internet never forgets. Like, remember when Beyonce said the internet needs to delete that photo of her from the Super Bowl, and that shit went viral? The internet never forgets, baby. Never ever forgets.
Yeah. All right, we're coming up on. Actually, we're already at hour 35, and I promised I wouldn't go over 90. So, Michael Strahan has 2 jobs because he has 2 ex-wives to support. Yeah, well, another reason why you shouldn't get married. Seppi, I saw your comment here. I will answer you tomorrow on my show, because it's kind of I'm gonna get into that topic tomorrow and what I'm getting into. So save that, and I will save that, and I will answer you tomorrow. I don't want him to feel him, whatever it is, to feel out of it. But anyways, this has been a good discussion, man. This actually turned out to be a whole lot better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, man.
It's a popular topic, and I think it's really easy to sort of get into the red meat of it, like, oh, all women are hoes, and all women are going through their hoe phase, and I'm doomed if Brad Pitt can't get a girl to be honest and to be straight, then what chance do I have? All women are, they see this. They'll, granted, I bait people a little bit with the thumbnails. Okay. Mm-hmm. You got me. But why is it? Why is it popular? I think it's an important topic to talk about, particularly for guys who need to understand the nature of women. What is it that they're going to do? So that at the end of this, my last thing on my list here is that, plan accordingly. How do we make women's phases of life work for you? Well, the first thing that you need to understand is that women predictably go through different phases, even if the context is different, even if the country is different. Like you were saying before, in Japan, they tend to be a little more conservative. That doesn't mean that the women there aren't hypergamous. They certainly are.
They are, for sure.
But their schedule might be stepped up a little bit more. They might be a little bit more, they might want to conceal hypergamy a little bit more than they would, say, in a country where the economy doesn't afford them to be a little bit more entitled or be more straightforward and in your face about it. The United States does that. Yes. Now you want to talk about Western women? Yeah, Western women are the way they are because they're comfortable here, because they're comfortable in embracing hypergamy, open cuckoldry, open polygamy, polyamory. That's where we're going next with all this, by the way. And they're comfortable in that. They're, what seems like it wouldn't be a big deal, or like it would never happen in your country or your religion or your politics or whatever. Guess what? At some point, it's going to happen. And you know what? If you're not educated, and if you don't have a good red pill understanding of women's nature, you're going to get out. You're going to end up on the sharp end of the stick of this, and you're going to be wondering why. Or you're going to come up with this bullshit about like, well, women are like this all the time. Like, well, you knew it. You can't say you didn't see it coming. And that's really what we're here to do, is to give you actionable information. So, right. So anyway, what are we doing? Are you going to do dude party right after this?
So dude party's on my channel right after this. I'm going to paste the link in the chat right there. Just click on that link. We're going to talk about what are the best jobs for men in a post-coronavirus world. Best jobs, because a lot of guys got unemployed, got laid off. We're going to talk about how to get these recession-proof jobs for men. And then also on May 27th, John McAfee is going to be on my show, the Tokyo Crypto Show, at 11 a.m. It's a special time. John McAfee and I are going to be talking about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and everything related to it. You can find that May 27th, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on my show. Everything's been going good with pandemic pickup. We have 165 people attending the educational webinars live on a regular basis. Really good group of guys. It's getting to the point, man. I don't think I told you about this, Rollo, but yesterday we had a guy in there from Belgium, and his English wasn't as good, but he could speak French. And I had some French Canadians in there, and we were actually doing international translations between English and French with coaching. So it was really cool to see my reach growing, and like a lot of guys reaching out and having, their problems sorted out on an international level. Very rewarding.
Right on. That's good. That's good. Cool. I'm doing tomorrow. I will be doing my show. I'm going to step it up an hour. I'm going to do it at 1 o'clock Pacific. It'll be 4 o'clock Eastern time. I'm kind of experimenting with some different times, because people will tell me like, on Sunday they would like it earlier, or they would like it later. So I'm going to try a little bit earlier tomorrow, just an hour early, and see how it goes. So put that. If you haven't subscribed to this channel that you're watching right now, please do. Also get the notifications. If you are a fan of the Rule Zero crew, we have a website, or not website, we have a Facebook group on Facebook. Just look it up, Rule Zero, and we'll get you in there. You can get notifications as to who's hosting. The next host will be Rich on Saturday. Actually, he was supposed to be today, but we swapped on this one. So we'll be doing that. Just to let everybody know where we're at with the Rule Zero live event that we're doing in October 2nd through the 4th. We are working on new speakers for that, but we already have Aaron Clary is confirmed. I believe we have John Somnes now as confirmed. And we also have Sterling Cooper confirmed. So those 3 of the 5 are the extra 5. We've got 2 more slots open, and we're working on other guys for that right now. Once we have a full schedule, once we have all the guys confirmed, then we'll do a big announcement. We'll probably do a full show, talking about what we're doing and how you can get involved. And we're expanding this one. We're making this the bigger one that we wanted it to be in the first place. So that will be a 2-day event. Well, technically a 3-day event in October. So we pushed that up a little bit. You have to be a part of one of our communities to be to get a ticket to that, to get registration for that. So you either have to be part of my Patreon community, part of John's private community, or Rich's, or whoever. So whoever you want to support later on, and I would suggest you support the new guys that are coming in, because we had a 6 months head start on selling tickets. So Aaron Clary will have something going on, I'm pretty sure, once we make the big announcement. So that's coming out very soon. Just to let you guys know about that. And again, Wednesday is another day that I will be doing my show again at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. So stick around for that, and I'll see you guys then. This has been fun, man. Thanks for hanging.